Hello, everybody. Mark with Cardabox Academy here, and today we're talking about the latest Slaughter to Prevail song. Now, I'm not sure if it's called Berserk, Zavali Ebalo, and I'm probably saying that wrong, or if it's just called Zavali Ebalo and they have Berserk in the title because it clearly uses Berserk footage, which is an anime from, I think, the 90s. I'm not sure. Either way, it's the song we're talking about. Now, if you're new to the channel, I myself am a metal vocalist in 3 bands, Kardashev, Neverbreath, and Viremia, and I'm also a metal vocal coach. My day-to-day, my specialty is teaching people how to make all sorts of these crazy, distorted, guttural, high, gurgly sounds. So if you're interested in learning about that, you're in the right spot, because what we do here is we take the reaction format, we break it down, we try to make it as fun as possible, we talk about the vocals, and there's always something interesting to talk about with Alex Terrible, who, if you're unaware, A, I'd be surprised, B, is the vocalist of the band from Russia, Slaughter to Prevail. So let's go ahead, let's jump into it. If you enjoy the video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below. It means a lot to see that you had fun. And then also, if you want to join in the fun, help us get some more videos up, we do have a Patreon. We do let our patrons vote on one reaction video per month. Plus, we have a pretty active Discord with all sorts of fun community events and things like that. So it's a great time. Feel free to check it out. But let's go ahead and let's just jump into it. Kind of a short track. Slaughter to Prevail, Berserk, Zavali Ebalo. Let's go. Okay, there was actually a cool break. Why is it that most songs tend to have a break? So this is just something I'm noticing right now in the moment. I always try to pause when I hear little breaks to talk about the vocals because, you know, as much as I can, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the song too much. So I go for where I hear these breaks, and it's like, it's always around 42 seconds. Is that just my ear, or is that like a thing? I don't know. Anyways, okay. So really interesting way. Really interesting way he's starting out the sound, right? He's starting off the song, and we might even listen to the intro again, just because there was a lot going on, but he's starting the song with a lot of true chord phonation, very high, kind of nasally, frontally resonant, masky speaking, right? That's a lot of adjectives in one space. But the point is he's up here talking like this, and then moving in and out of the distortion. And then he brought in one of his more characteristic sounds, which is like this very roaring mid. Let's listen to that one more time, actually, because there's a lot we could talk about there. Let's just go back here, 8 seconds. Yeah, so that's actually pretty impressive. I mean, he's definitely not like putting all his cards on the table, but being able to go between those clean and open tones, right? You think you're done, and then yeah, right? Moving very, very cleanly. A lot more clean than I did, since he knows the song. Is pretty impressive. It tells me that he's really relaxed, which we've already established in the previous Slaughter to Prevail videos. He does. He's got a lot of relaxation. He's got a lot of forward resonance, and he actually utilizes, especially I'm hearing it in that like roaring mid-tone that he does, he's utilizing more intentional airflow. He's actually adding a little bit more air. He's adding a little bit more breathiness to it. And when done correctly, that can help you hold things relaxed and open. Really kind of cool. Really kind of cool.
Глупость, подлость, глупость.
fascinating. That's really fascinating. So the song has an interesting vibe to it. It's got an interesting groove. It's very start, stop, speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And I know I don't say that as a bad thing, but it is a little, I've not heard every Slaughter to Prevail song out there, but it is a little different than what I'm used to. I'm used to like a lot of just driving force right out the gate, One thing he's doing to keep it interesting, or at least to keep the listener engaged, is he's moving a lot between placement and register, right? Now, a lot of the time when we do this, we'll get overactive with our larynx, right? So there's no way I'm going to remember those sections individually. So I'm not going to try to mimic them because I don't know, A, I don't know what he's saying. And B, it's very staccato, very back and forth, patterns coming in and out, but he's moving between different placements. So, we might be like here, and then popping immediately within the same breath on the next syllable down to like an right? Moving between those two placements really quite accurately. And that's very cool. If anything, that's worth listening to. Now, one way that we can learn to do that is to stick with one scream, right? So let's take just like a basic, like slightly compressed false chord sound. Right? That's pretty basic. That's just building on your adding a little bit of compression. Right? What you can do is you can just practice going from like an open sound or an open mouth shape to a closed mouth shape. A lot of the ways that we're going to move high and low is actually through the shape of our mouth. Oh, I'm clipping a little bit. Let me move the mic. So this is a really important factor, especially if we're going to be protecting our vocal folds and protecting our vocal muscles, right? Because we have very important sets of muscles that control our vocal fold closure, our vocal fold length, right? The TA and the CT muscles, along with others that are very important as well. So what I'm getting at here is if we give a lot of our work to our embouchure, to our mouth shape, we don't have to transfer that work down low. So this isn't going to necessarily get you super high or super low, but it'll help you understand how to create contrast within the same tone, right? So again, if my tone is here, right? Let's start with ah, and I'm going to go down to ooh. Right? It sounds like I'm maybe moving between two totally different techniques and things. Not at all. It's just a difference in the tongue placement in the mouth. Let's keep going. I'm going to go back so you can hear a little bit of that. Really interesting stuff. Really fascinating so far. Another thing that I'm hearing here is that there's a lot of balance in Alex's voice, right? Oftentimes when we think about metal vocals or even our clean voice, right? Our clean singing, we will think just about the grit, just about the texture, right? But at the same time, we want to have a lot of balance in the sound as well. Now, what I mean by that, and I talk with my students about this a lot, is that we want to think. There are many different ways to think about the voice, and this is certainly not the only way, but this is a way that I find to be very, very beneficial. We want to think of the voice as falling into three categories, right? These categories are breath support, resonance, and phonation. The way that we support our breath, we support our voice, right? The way that we inhale, the way that we support the sound using the diaphragm, the abs, the lower abdominal muscles, holding those ribs out, letting the voice project up and forward. Building on that, we also want to talk a little bit about, or we want to think about our resonance. Where in our head are these sound waves bouncing around? And then finally, the phonation, right? Which is the actual sound of the voice itself, the grit or the clean tone if we're clean singing. And so when he's doing these more, we're going to go back a little bit, but when he's doing these more like gritty belts on a pitch, like an audible pitch that we can hear, there's a lot of balance here. And there are so many clips of Alex out there that we've all seen. And every time I do a Slaughter to Prevail video, my inbox gets inundated with tons of clips of him on Instagram. I've seen them. I appreciate you sending them, but I promise I've seen them. And he always is very, very balanced. Earlier in his career, from older clips, there's a lot of this push that where the telltale like chest and shoulder push. A lot less of it now, and you can actually see him sometimes. He'll just be sitting and doing like these big roaring sounds that he has, and that is a sign of balance. That is a sign of all those factors: breath support, resonance, and phonation working together, right? And that's going to give you a relaxed sound that's going to carry you a very, very long way. So let's go back. Let's listen to these open tones and think about that. Think about what kind of breath support is underneath there. What kind of activation are we getting to get that diaphragm to push up against the base of our lungs? Then where is that sound coming from and where is it going? What structures are shaking around? If it's a false chord grunt, if it's a fry sound, if we're using like our arytenoid cartilages to get some of that sort of squally sound or the epiglottis popping around, right? And then think about where the sound is going. Up and forward, right? Check it out. So I'm going to stand back from my mic a little bit. Right? Very up and forward. It's very powerful sound, but it's really easy to do. If you can just, hey, it's not that bad. Now, he's got a little bit more grit on it than I do. Let's keep going, though. We could talk about that for a while. Here we go. Okay, sounds like we have another transition. He hasn't done his ever since Demolisher, and it's not the first time he did them, but he has like these signature, really open, really relaxed lows, and I haven't heard them really come to the forefront, which is interesting. It's like, hey, moving away from that signature sound, always a little bit risky, but always kind of admirable when somebody does that. But one thing I want to talk about, when we hear Alex's voice, I think one thing that we should think about is that he is really in control of resonance. We've talked about this in every Alex Terrible video, and we will continue to talk about it in every Slaughter to Prevail video. But there's so much cavernousness. Cavernousness, is that a word? I'm making it a word. Cavernousness. Hashtag cavernousness. There's a very cavernous quality to his voice. And one thing that's really cool is we can actually practice that independent of doing metal vocals, right? So, if you're new to metal vocals and you really want to get this cavernous sound, this open resonance down, but, your muscles aren't really used to it. You're not used to the feeling of distortion on your soft palate, that gritty sandpaper feeling on the tissue that can take it, stratified squamous epithelium built for friction. You might be like, man, I want to find this sound, but I can't do it with metal vocals for more than 15 minutes because I get tired, right? Well, you can just do it with clean air. So your clean breath, right? Like a whisper, right? Play around with your tongue placement. So for example, if I take that same sound and I curl the tongue back, so the tongue's going to curl like this, and it's going to come back and slightly up, right? And then I'm going to take my lips and I'm going to kind of make this shape. I can play with resonance without having to play with my metal vocals. I do that all the time, right? Because, you know, my wife doesn't love metal music and she doesn't love metal vocals. And sometimes I'll want to practice resonance placement, right? And, you know, also she goes to bed way earlier than me. So I'll be, you know, sitting at my desk and I'm like, right? You can actually find a lot of cool things. So when he gets this cavernous sound, one thing I've noticed, you know, kind of about his voice and about his sound is that his mouth gets very like tall, right? So he'll kind of curl the upper lips up. And I don't have the same low and open quality that he does. So don't expect like an identical Alex Terrible scream right now. You ain't gonna get one. But one thing that I notice is his lip tends to kind of curl up, showing his teeth, which is really cool actually, because he's adding some brightness to the tone, some brightness to the tone that's so low. Then his mouth gets kind of tall. And it sounds like he's got a little bit of nasality. Right, he's got kind of that quality going on, which is really neat. Although I will say, one thing I've noticed is that when I do this with my mouth, and this may be different for some people, when I do this, get this like really tall space, I do have to really think about my forward resonance, or it has a tendency to slip down. Now, as long as you aim it, right? Hey, 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 it's fine. It's no problem. But good breath support is going to be really, really necessary. This song is weird. I like it, but it's weird. It's very different from what I'm used to of their sound. And the things that it's choosing to expose are very fascinating, very entertaining choices, but strange choices nonetheless. Here we go. So, oh, sorry, the song is almost done. My bad. Okay. So, I just spent like, I don't know, 5 minutes being like, hey, it's interesting that he's not doing like his signature low vocal. And then freaking three seconds later, it pops out. I will say it's still interesting that it's such a small part of the song. And I think it's the right choice, honestly. You know, after Demolisher and then Baba Yaga, it could have been said that they might lean on that sound too much. So moving away from it and showing his other abilities, I think is a really smart choice. Also, shout out to the drummer. That cymbal play was so sick. I want to just listen to that one more time, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, because holy cannoli, that was nuts. Here maybe? Yeah, come on up here. So I've only ever seen the first episode of Berserk, but I'm pretty sure the whole show is just about cutting people in half. Like that's got to be the whole thing. That's it, right? I'm totally teasing. I'm sure it's amazing. Yeah, so overall I liked the whole song. Definitely kind of an odd one in their releases so far. I think the outro is probably my favorite part because everybody just kind of came together. Now that really low tone he has, a lot of that is that openness we were talking about. And there's also this structure. So, well, I shouldn't say structure, a space in the back of the mouth called the pharynx, right? Now, the pharynx is actually the tube, right? We've got the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngo or laryngopharynx, however you want to say it. I like saying laryngo because laryngo just makes me think of the Beatles. But opening up the pharynx is actually a really important exercise. Raising the soft palate is part of that, but learning how to relax the muscles kind of, and I always forget what they're called, superior something. Opening up and relaxing those muscles, that's a really good way to get more resonance. Again, without having to pull the larynx downward. Right now, he sounds like he shares a lot of nasal resonance with that as well, and that's what helps him get that really, really low tone, lower, or I should say, more open. Sometimes I hear those signature low vocals that he does, and I think to myself, maybe open is a better term than low, because there are certainly other vocalists that can get that low, or maybe even lower, but he just has this very signature, very specific openness to them that really doesn't sound like anybody else. And I think that's kind of what we all listen for. But a couple ways that we can practice opening up the pharynx, and you may not get his sound, and that's okay. I don't sound exactly like him. You may not either, but that doesn't mean we can't still take the concepts and apply them to our own voice, right? So a couple things you can do just to kind of get used to the idea of opening up the space. This is a really classic one, not specific to me, but just like yawning, right? And when we yawn, with any vocal exercise or vocal calibration, we want to pay attention to what we're doing. Because if you just sit there and yawn, it's not going to do much. If you just yawn, if I just made you yawn, put it in the comments below. Whew. But it always makes my eyes water. But when we yawn, you hear that quality of the breath there. Now, we don't want to have a lot of strain, right? But when I take that, it helps me access a lot more resonance and a lot more width in my tone without having to work very hard for it. If I have a really closed pharyngeal space and I try to do a low, kind of sounds like that. Open up. Now, I did add a little tongue curl there to help as well, but it really creates a lot more space in the sound. We can also share with our nose a little bit. Right, and different things. But that's a whole nother ball game. So anyways, that was Slaughter to Prevail, Berserk, Zavali Ebalo. Hopefully I'm kind of close to saying that right. Rad song, different song. Really, really enjoyed. I'm going to go back and probably listen to this a couple more times because I really enjoyed Alex's like staccato, almost like stairwell, up, down, up, down, up, down. It was like he was on a really fast elevator, up here, mid, bump, 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 just kind of all over the place, but in a way that I think was really like strategic and actually sounded really cool. So great job to the Slaughter to Prevail dudes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me on this lovely day, talking vocals. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Put it in the comments below. Check us out on Patreon if you want to hang out and support the channel further. And if you want help making all these sort of like weird noises, hit me up in the email. The link is in the description below. But as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.